Trump. Um, and I really don't watch him or anything, watch the news or anything, but I'm so glad that my faith has grown so much that I just know God's got it. And whatever goes on, that He is gonna take care of us as believers. And like Miss Kirk, my Haley Kirk used to say that it's nothing new under the sun. It happened in the Old Testament and it's happening now. And even with this, with the Christians that's Paul's writing about, they hard headed and you got to keep chastising them. And the same thing with the Israelites. Moses and Aaron, all of them had to keep chastising them. Every time they got discouraged, they went back to the idol god. So, and the same here, because Trump is he's just, he just think everything revolves around him. So. But that's not what God wants us to do. He wants us to go out and share the word so we can be disciples of Christ. And whether or not they want to hear it or not, you just tell them, and if they receive it, they receive it, and if not, you just move on.
God do the work.
We are the vessels, because I like Paul's life served as a powerful example of perseverance. He remained steadfast in his mission to spread the gospel, urging believers to remain faithful even when facing persecution and discouragement. And that's hard, but we have to.
And that's why it's so fun, because you always got people trying to convince you that God is not real, and they get out there and they call these cooks. Mm-hmm. They'll tell you in a minute, God is not real, and they got a board, see. Right. They all over the place. If you watch the news, you see, how can you have a religion, you saying that, you hate this people, you hate that people. That's not God's way. Mm-hmm. So, you got people that is telling the world that. Right. And then if you don't, tell your side of it, they'll believe what they hear.
Yeah.
That's why I said study and show yourself approved.
Yeah. And then if they can separate you, they'll do it. The devil coming to separate and have you at odds with each other. And but I also in verses 16 and 17, Paul ended the letter by reminding the Thessalonians that it was God who loved them and gave them everlasting comfort. And with his special favor, grace, and hope through salvation by believing in Jesus Christ. Isn't that something? Yeah. So as long as we will have everlasting comfort. And what was it? We must recognize and appreciate that persecution is a part of our Christian reality. So that was a big one for me, and that's what I used to tell people. They was like, "Well, how can they let them suffer like that?" But Christ suffered much worse than I think we ever would suffer. So that is a part of our Christian reality as well, that just because you're suffering, it doesn't mean that God doesn't love you. It's just a part of what has to go on for us to get to heaven and whatnot. And then it says all believers can expect to suffer here on earth.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it was a lot. Short, but it was a lot in these short verses that really touched my heart, and I got to remember that I have to be patient and take me out of, especially at work. I just got to take me out of it and just go with the flow. because he might be pushing me to retirement. I keep thinking when I'm there because I sort of get upset, but it is what it is. So I'm gonna pray on it and see where it takes me. Because my job might be retirement and working in the community and doing more that I can retire. So that's you guys gonna review. Or, I know the pastor isn't here, but it's a quarter till.
What you asked what?
Review.
Okay.
Thank y'all.
You're welcome.
Good job.
Amen.
A good lesson this morning, and we talked about perseverance. That was our topic this morning. And sitting there thinking about what is perseverance? It's being persistent. You got to be determined that you're going to do it the Lord's way. And what the lesson was about this morning, that these people was having some problem being persistent because of what they was had false teachers coming in. We had people talking about them, and that's when Paul had to write a letter saying, look here, this first letter he wrote, then he wrote another letter encouraging them to whatever the problem is. You have to stay focused on what God is telling you to do. And that's what brings it in for us today. We're going to go through some trials and tribulations. But when we go through some trials and tribulations, the world out there looking and saying, they're still keeping God first when they didn't give up. So if we give up, we'll be just like them. We go back out there and start doing what we're doing. And sometimes, I think trials and tribulations make us stronger in the Word of God. Because when we go through trials and tribulations, we can look back and say, only God brought us through that. I was at my lowest point, and you didn't put it, she was thinking about it the time, because when you have these job problems, you don't give up. Yeah. Mm-hmm. When you have sickness, when you have death, when you have all kinds of problems, you still got to put God first. Because you nobody saw that the guy was in the sand and he said, I noticed when I was at my lowest point, there was only, 2 tracks. So you left me. You was right there with me. Because I didn't think I could pick you up. I was told you to. That was my footprint to the sand. Go there some kind of way. But anyhow, he was saying, I got you. And when we go through some things, when we go through some trials and tribulations, when we have heartache, when we have death, it don't last for a while. You just know, you can look back and say, now God brought you through that. But during the time when we were in it, look like that's the worst time in the world. Mm-hmm. So this is a very good lesson. It taught me something about being persistent. Because sometimes all of us, when we give up, you can't give up on nothing. You have to keep God's word is true. Them that, you got to still be persistent and do what the Lord tell you to do, regardless of the problem that you have in this life. Because this life is no cloud with ease.
Joy cometh in the morning.
Yeah, we're waiting on this rain to come in. I heard from.
I get that.
Jesus.
What do you have? 10 o'clock. We got 5 more minutes.
The one who didn't the preach. Yeah, preach. No, I did my part. Probably bring the message.
Everybody knows too.
Nobody responded. Yeah, it's, you know, it's you.
You know? Jones.
Harvey 6, I don't think she coming back. Yeah, they got the little Bible chat thing back.
The mic's on.
I didn't get the list, I wasn't sure. Yeah, they didn't say if they were coming or not. Yeah, so we'll just, come on, Bryce. That's right, Bryce. We're singing ABC, 1, 2, 3. You got it, Bryce? That's right, Bryce.
Morning, morning.
You ready, Bryce? I know how to get back in there too. That's right, Bryce. Good morning, thank you. Ornament spring. I say